it's June. Why did I think it was Black History Month? It's a different type of month. But it doesn't matter. Black History Month is each and every day that me, you, all of us Black Americans, all of us Black people, like they like to say, any day we wake up, it's our day to make history. Black history, it's not just a month, it's every single day. Today, we're going to be looking at 10 Black history facts that are least known. Let's up our knowledge. Let's learn about us. Let's expand our brains to who we are and what we are. Let's see what they got to say.
I know.
Or Negro History Week, which was introduced by historian Carter G. Woodson.
Negro History Week. I've actually never even heard of that. So, do we celebrate it?
You will find out 10 Black history facts that are least known in today's video. So sit back, relax, hold tight. Something unique is coming your way. Before there was Rosa Parks, there was Claudette Colvin.
I know who Claudette Colvin is. And Rosa Parks, it's kind of crazy, but the way the news cycle worked, they chose Rosa Parks. Why? Because she was married to a white man, this, and that. But Claudette Colvin, she was actually Rosa Parks before Rosa Parks, and I'm sure they're going to get into that before it. But it just goes to show you, the news, the media, what we actually know, the history that we know, what is it even about? Because they pick and choose what they want to let us know about.
Most people, including you, think of Rosa Parks as the first person to refuse to give up their seat on a bus in Montgomery, Alabama. Well, several women came before Rosa Parks, one of whom was Claudette Colvin. It was March 2nd, 1955, when the 15-year-old schoolgirl refused to move to the back of the bus. This incident happened 9 months before Rosa Parks' stand.
I'm not gonna lie though, why couldn't we just sit in the back? I low-key like the back of the bus. Huh?
Launched a Montgomery bus boycott.
Actually, you know what? I get it. If you were telling me to sit in the back, bitch, I'm gonna sit wherever I want. Huh? Do something about it, huh?
Claudette had been studying Black leaders like Harriet Tubman in her segregated school. Those conversations had led to a discussion around the current day Jim Crow laws they were all experiencing. When the bus driver ordered Claudette to get up, she refused. Claudette said it felt like Sojourner Truth was on one side pushing me down, and Harriet Tubman was on the other side of me pushing me down. I couldn't get up. Claudette Colvin's stand didn't stop there. She had the will to do something for her people, which got her arrested and thrown in jail. She was one of 4 women who challenged the segregation law in court. If Broder vs. Gale became the court case that successfully overturned the bus segregation.
I actually do think I remember learning about this. This video is loud as hell too, so I don't know how loud it is for you guys, but this shit is loud.
Laws in both Montgomery and the state of Alabama. Why has Claudette's story been largely forgotten? At the time, the NAACP and other Black organizations felt Rosa Parks made a better icon for the movement than a teenager.
A better icon for the movement. Why can't our movement just be our movement? Why can't we just fight for what we believe is right, what actually is right? Why does it have to be a movement, a civil rights movement? Why does it need the media push? Why does it need this, and that? Bitch, it shouldn't need an icon. It shouldn't need this, and that. We should just get this, and that.
Adult with the right looks, Rosa Parks was also the NAACP secretary and was both well-known and respected.
I did not know that.
People would associate her with the middle class, which would also attract support for the cause. But the struggle to end segregation was often fought by young people, more than half of which were women. The courage of Claudette Colvin has become just another story. To pay tribute to a 15-year-old girl's bravery, you can read Claudette Colvin's book, Twice Towards Justice.
Go check it out.
Martin Luther King Jr. improvised the most iconic part of his I Have a Dream speech.
That one day all my Black brothers and sisters will be able to share diners and read books and go to school and I probably butchered it, but shout out MLK, alright.
It's normal to improvise speeches on stage, but I Have a Dream sounds impossible, but it's true. On Wednesday, August the 28th, 1963, 250,000 Americans united.
That shit was straight improv off the dome. Okay, MLK, we needed to get you in the studio.
At the Lincoln Memorial for the March's final speech on Washington. As Martin Luther King Jr. stood at the podium, he eventually pushed his notes aside. The night before the march, Dr. King began working on his speech with a small group of advisors in the Willard Hotel lobby. The original speech was more political and less historic, according to Clarence B. Jones, and it didn't include any references to dreams. After delivering the now famous line,
"No, we are not satisfied, and we will not be satisfied until justice rolls down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream."
Dr. King transformed his speech into a sermon. On stage during Dr. King, singer Mahalia Jackson reportedly kept saying, "Tell him about the dream, Martin." And while no one would know if he heard her, it could have likely been the inspiration he needed. Dr. King then continued,
So even though we face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream.
I got chills. I got chills.
And then the famous Baptist preacher preached on, adding repetition and outlining the specifics of his dream. No one from the authorities was ready for this impromptu speech, but somewhere deep down, they knew something like this could happen. But even earlier, they discussed delivering a speech in the form of a sermon, but nothing was fixed. That day, honesty and emotions ruled the stage and traveled through the crowd. While this spontaneous speech given on a hot August day in 1963 was not considered a universal success immediately, it is now recognized as one of American history's greatest speeches. Inoculation.
So was MLK penalized after he got off the stage? How shortly after he gave that speech did he die? Because you know how they be moving. You know once your voice reaches a certain decibel level and it's loud enough for certain people to hear it, they gotta get you gone.
And was introduced to America by an enslaved African. Few details are known about the birth of Onesimus, but it's assumed he was born in Africa in the late 17th century before eventually landing in Boston.
Boston! Shout out to Boston! Your cousin from Boston!
1,000 African descendants living in the Massachusetts colony, Onesimus was a gift to the Puritan church minister Cotton Mather's from his congregation.
He was a gift? You gifted a child? Hold on. You gifted a little black baby to a white man, Cotton Mather. Cotton Master. This dude's name is Cotton Master, and you gifted a little black baby to him.
In 1706.
I hope I'm wrong.
Onesimus told Mathers about the century-old tradition of inoculation practiced in Africa. By extracting the material from an infected person and scratching it into the skin of an uninfected person, you could deliberately introduce smallpox to the healthy individual.
What? They did that? What?
Making them immune. He described to Mathers the process of inoculation that had been performed on him and others in his society in Africa, saying people take a juice of smallpox and cut the skin and put in a drop. Considered extremely dangerous at the time, Cotton Mathers convinced Dr. Zabdiel Boylston to experiment with the procedure when a smallpox epidemic hit Boston in 1721 and over 240 people were inoculated. Opposed politically, religiously, and
inoculated? Is that a big ass word for died? Wiped out? Taken off the map? Plague?
medically in the United States and abroad, public reaction to the experiment put Mathers and Boylston's lives in danger, despite records indicating that only 2% of the patients requesting inoculation died compared to 15% of the people not inoculated who contracted smallpox. Onesimus' traditional African practice was used to inoculate American soldiers during the Revolutionary War and introduced the concept of inoculation to the United States. However, an inscription on Boylston's tomb incorrectly identified him as the first one to have introduced the practice of inoculation into America. In 2016, medical science came to know.
I might have got this whole story wrong. Where did I get gifted a little black baby from? I don't know, but you get the point.
About Onesimus' contribution, following which he was placed among the 100 best Bostons of all time by Boston Magazine. And following
the 100 best Bostonians of all time. Who's front and center? Tom Brady.
In which he was placed among the 100 best Bostons of all time by Boston Magazine. And when historian Ted Widmer of Markley Honors College at City University, New York, noted that Onesimus reversed many of the colonists' traditional racial assumptions. He had a lot more knowledge medically than most of the Europeans in Boston at the time. The earliest recorded protest against slavery was by the Quakers in 1680.
The Quakers, I know exactly who they are. My nana, she used to make me their grits every single morning.
Quakers, also known as the Society of Friends, have a long history of abolitionism. The initial protests in the 17th century, drafted by Francis Daniel Pastoris, a young German attorney, and 3 other Quakers living in Germantown, Pennsylvania, on behalf of the Germantown meeting of the Religious Society of Friends to raise the issue of slavery with the Quakers meeting which they attended. They saw the slave trade as a grave injustice against their fellow man and used the golden rule to argue against such inhumane treatment. Regardless of skin color, we should golden rule they attended.
The golden rule was back then too? Why do we still not follow it? Why is this not written into the Constitution? Dude told me treat people how you want to be treated when I was like 2. And I still follow it to this day.
Saw the slave trade as a grave injustice against their fellow man and used the golden rule to argue against such inhumane treatment. Regardless of skin color,
Is that like actually, sorry, but is that like actually a world, like globally recognized golden rule? Is that like, let me know because I thought that was just cliche.
We should do unto others as we would have done unto ourselves. In their protest, they stated, pray what things in the world can be done worse towards us, than if men shall rob or steal us away and sell us for slaves to strange countries, separating husband from their wife and children. Their protest against slavery and human trafficking was presented at a monthly meeting at Dublin and Philadelphia. The Dublin monthly meeting reviewed the protest and sent it to the quarterly meeting, feeling it was too serious of an issue for their own meeting to decide. The 4 friends continued their efforts and presented it at the Philadelphia yearly meeting, but it wasn't until 88 years later that the Society of Friends officially denounced slavery. Over the centuries, this rare document has been considered lost twice. Most recently, it was rediscovered in 2005 and is now at Hartford College Special Collections. Of the 12.5 million Africans shipped to the New World during the transatlantic slave trade, fewer than
12.5 million Africans shipped to the New World. 12.5 million people, human beings, me, you, them, 12.5 million just dumped onto a cruise ship and sold, keyword sold. This isn't like we're going to Walmart. This isn't like we're going to just grocery shop. You're shopping human beings. And it still goes on today. Crazy.
388,000 arrived in the United States. In the late 15th century, seafaring technology's advancements created a new Atlantic that would change the world forever. As ships began connecting West Africa with Europe and the Americas, new fortunes were sought, and native populations were decimated.
I'm sorry, but imagine being like Christopher Columbus. Imagine being anybody back then who just got on a ship to set sail. You really did not know where you were going, bro. All you had was an idea and the map and the sun and wherever the ocean decided to take you. Christopher Columbus discovering the Americas and wherever he discovered, bro must have been flabbergasted. Holy shit, I thought I was gonna die.
With the native labor force dwindling and demand for plantation and mining labor growing, the transatlantic slave trade began. Sea Route gave the green light to the transatlantic slave trade that was underway from 1500 to 1866, shipping more than 12 million enslaved Africans across the world.
What the fuck? This is how they used to pack us up? There's no rum. Where do you go to the bathroom? What the fudgy? Plan showing the stowage of 130 additional slaves around the wings or sides of the lower deck by means of platforms or shelves, in the manner of galleries in a church. The slaves stowed on the shelves and below them have only a height of 2 feet 7 inches between the beams and far less under the beams. This is crazy.
Of those Africans, only 10.7 million survived the dreaded Middle Passage. Over 400 years, most enslaved Africans, 4.9 million of them, found their way to...
If you're stuck like that, if you're positioned like that, when you're in the ocean, water obviously dumps into the ship, especially if the weather is walky. How are they not drowning? Or is that how the other 2.5 million people died?
Brazil, where they suffered incredibly high mortality rates due to terrible working conditions. You will be amazed to know that Brazil was the last country to ban slavery in 1888. By the time
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
the United States became involved in the slave trade, it had been underway for 200 years. The majority, but not all, of its 388 enslaved Africans arrived between 1700 and 1866, representing a much smaller percentage than most Americans realize.
Like, when you actually think about it, it's crazy. Slaves, the slave trade, we talk about it like it's taboo. Like, it's just like, oh yeah, there were these people who were sold, this, and that. The Black history, African American history. Like, it's normalized now in a way that where we can talk about it. And I don't mean normalized like as it's normal, because it's fucking very abnormal. But it was like an actual, like, the world worked around slavery. Slavery was a system. And people were working within the system, making money, losing money, buying, selling. Like, it's really crazy when you think about it like that. The system was us, Black people, African Americans. 12.5 million of us to be exact. We are what the world revolved around. Holy shit. And we still are. We just need to find a way back to that path.
Diverse history of historically Black colleges and universities. When it comes to the pursuit of civil rights, Jewish and African American communities have a tumultuous shared history. There is a chapter in the shared history that is often overlooked. In the 1930s, when Jewish academics from Germany and Austria were dismissed from their teaching positions, many came to the United States looking for jobs. Due to the Depression, the xenophobia, and the rising anti-Semitism, many found—
Bro, why are you playing these HBCU beats while I'm trying to focus and I'm trying to learn? Come on. Fun fact, I really wanted to go to HBCU after high school, but I didn't. It's never too late though. Who knows? Stay tuned.
challenging to find work, but more than 50 found positions at HBCUs in the segregated South. Originally established to educate freed enslaved Africans to read and write, the first of the HBCUs was Cheyney University in Pennsylvania, established in 1837. By the time the Jewish professors arrived, the number of HBCUs have grown to 78. Because both Jews and African Americans were persecuted, Jewish professors—
Wait, Jewish professors? I didn't know that. What is the history with that?
in the Black colleges found the environment comfortable and accepting, often creating special programs to provide opportunities to engage Blacks and whites in meaningful conversation, often for the—
Wait, so us Blacks and the Jews were like connected? Shit, let me get some stake in the top 10 biggest companies in the world then. Please, holler at your boy.
first time. In the years that followed, the interests of Jewish and African American communities increasingly diverged, but this once shared experience of discrimination and interracial cooperation remains a vital part of the civil rights movement. 1 in 4—
I actually did not know that at all. Like, at all. Nothing about it. Wow. The more you know.
Cowboys was Black, despite the stories told in popular books and movies. Are you surprised? The biggest shock for you is it is believed that the real Lone Ranger—
I mean, did you not watch Django?
was inspired by the African-American man named Bass Reeves. Reeves had been born into slavery, but escaped west during the Civil War, where he lived in what was known as Indian Territory. He eventually became a deputy U.S. Marshal, was a master of disguise, an
This is crazy, but like... Alright, no, yeah.
expert marksman, had a Native American companion, and rode a silver horse. Sounds similar to a Tarantino movie? No. If you think he had a unique fate, I'm afraid you are wrong. In the 19th century, the Wild Wild West drew enslaved Africans with the hope of freedom and wages. When the Civil War ended—
The Wild Wild West. That's really what it was called. I thought that was another cliche, just something we call it. Holy shit. Where was the Wild Wild West? What the fuck?
freedmen came west, hoping for a better life where the demand for skilled labor was high. These African Americans made up at least a quarter of the legendary cowboys. They lived dangerous lives facing weather, rattlesnakes, and outlaws while they slept under the stars driving cattle herds to the market. While there was little formal segregation in the frontier towns and a great deal of personal freedom, Black cowboys were often expected to do more of the work in the roughest jobs than their white counterparts. Loyalty did develop between the cowboys on a drive, but the Black cowboys were typically responsible for breaking the horse and being the first ones to cross flooded streams during cattle drives. In fact, it is believed that the term cowboy originated as a derogatory term used to describe Black cowhands.
Yeah! Let it be then.
Esther Jones was the real Betty Boop. Most of you might be thinking, who's Betty Boop? Why Esther Jones? Let me tell you, these baby characters were similar. The difference was Betty Boop was a cartoon character, thought to be inspired by someone else. Sometimes later, people came to know about Esther Jones and realized she strengthened the roots. The iconic cartoon character Betty Boop was inspired by a Black jazz singer in Harlem. Introduced by cartoonist Mac Fleischer in 1930, the jazz-age Flappers character was the first and most famous sex symbol in animation. Betty Boop is known for her revealing dress, curvy figure, and signature vocals, boo-wop-doo. While there
So she was the first propaganda for a bad bitch, huh?
has been controversy over the years, the inspiration has been traced back to Esther Jones, known as Baby Esther, and performed regularly in a cotton club during the 1920s. Baby Esther's trademark vocal style of using bops and other childlike scant sounds attracted the attention of Helen Kane during the performance in the late 1920s. After seeing Baby Esther, Helen Kane adopted her style and began using bops in her songs as well. Finding fame early on, Helen Kane
Why do they always do this? Elvis, I'm looking at you!
often included this baby style into her music. When Betty Boop was introduced, Kane promptly sued Fleischer and Paramount Public Corporation, stating that they were using her image and style. However, video evidence came to light of Baby Esther performing in a nightclub, and the courts ruled against Helen Kane, stating that she didn't have exclusive rights to the bopping style or image, and that style, in fact, predated her. Baby Esther's baby style did little to bring her mainstream fame, as she died in relatively obscurity, but a piece of her lives on in an iconic character, Betty Boop.
R.I.P. Esther Jones.
The first licensed African-American female pilot was named Bessie Coleman. Born in Atlanta, Texas in 1892, Bessie Coleman grew up in a world of harsh poverty, discrimination, and segregation. She moved to Chicago at 23 to seek her fortune, but found little opportunity there as well. Wild tales of flying exploits from returning World War I soldiers first inspired her to explore
I'm not gonna lie, the only female pilot you ever heard about growing up was Amelia Earhart.
aviation, but she faced a double stigma in that being both African-American and a woman. Coleman set her sights on France to reach her dreams and began studying French. In 1920, Coleman crossed the ocean with all of her savings and the financial support of Robert Abbott, one of the first African-American millionaires. Over the next
That's the dude who owns that elementary school, huh?
several months, she learned to fly, and then in June of 1921, the Federation of Aeronautique Internationale awarded her an international pilot's license. For African-American women to see the dream of being independent meant a lot then. When feminism was a naive kid, Coleman was flying in the sky. Coleman's return to the United States was widely celebrated. Reporters turned out in droves to greet her. Coleman performed at numerous air shows over the next 5 years, performing thrilling stunts, encouraging other African Americans to pursue flying, and refusing to perform where blacks were not admitted.
Do pilots, this is off topic, but do pilots die when they're training? Like, what if you're really not about that life and you just crash the fucking plane? You obviously have a teacher in there, etc., but like, how often does that happen?
Only 2 years into her flight career,
Wow.
Coleman survived her first significant airplane accident. In February of 1923, her airplane engine suddenly stopped working and she crashed. She was severely hurt in the accident and suffered a broken leg, a few cracked ribs, and a cut on her face. Thankfully, Coleman was able to heal from her injuries fully. This accident didn't
But
stop
yet
her
we hear
from
about
flying.
Amelia Earhart.
She
how
went back
might
to
be
performing
frozen in
dangerous
Antarctica.
air tricks in 1925. On April the 30th, 1926, Bessie Coleman took a test flight with a mechanic named William Willis. Willis was piloting the plane as Coleman sat in the passenger seat. At about 3,000 feet in the air, a loose wrench got stuck in the aircraft's engine. Willis was no longer able to control the steering wheel, and the plane flipped over. Unfortunately, Coleman was not wearing a seatbelt. Airplanes at the time did not have a roof or any protection. Coleman immediately fell out of the open plane and died. On her tragic death, the famous writer and equal rights advocate Ida B. Wells presided over her funeral. An editorial in the Dallas Express stated, "There's reason to believe that the general public did not completely sense the size of her contributions to the achievements of the race as such." Interracial marriage in
I'm just saying, even if there was no rule, why the fuck would I be above ground in the clouds without a seatbelt? R.I.P. Bessie Coleman.
the United States was banned in 1664 and not overturned until 1967. During the 17th and early 18th century,
Really?
the growing number of interracial marriages, also known as miscegenation, between blacks and whites, led to this new law's passage. The first anti-miscegenation law enacted was in the colony of Maryland in 1664, and additional colonies quickly followed suit. These marriages were prohibited, and penalties included the enslavement, exile, or imprisonment of the white perpetrators. These laws
Oh, so if I married a white woman, she'd go to jail, huh? Then what, I'd become a slave or something?
grew and evolved over the years, and attempts were even made to modify the Constitution to ban interracial marriage in all states. It would take 300 years for this law to be overturned. In 1967, Richard Levine, a white man, and Mildred Jeter a black woman, were married in the District of Columbia. When they returned home to Virginia, they were arrested and convicted of violating the state's anti-miscegenation law. They each faced a year in jail, and their case went to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court found in favor of the Lovings in a famous trial, Loving v. Virginia. They ruled that prohibiting interracial marriage on state and local levels was unconstitutional. This meant that marriages between the races were legal in the country for the first time since 1664. In 2000, Alabama became the last state to officially legalize interracial marriage by removing an unenforceable ban that was still contained in their state constitution. There are many such cases of rebel lovers who never bowed down in front of laws. Here we come to the end of this video.
Hey, 10 black history facts that are least known. I knew some of them, but some of them, they were also kind of new to me. Did you know any of these? Was your black mind expanded today? If so, I'm glad, because mine was. Let me know what the least interesting fact was, and let me know what took you by surprise. Let's talk down below. It's not Black History Month, but every day is Black History. You know me, you know he. OG. D.